What happens when a famous artist refuses to be quiet about discrimination? And what if one viral post exposes a pattern so disturbing it forces an entire company to answer for years of abuse? This is the story of Jasmine Jazz Carter, a Grammy-nominated singer with 8 million Instagram followers, a woman who'd performed for presidents and royalty, and on a Saturday afternoon in July, she was blocked from boarding a first-class flight because, according to the gate agent, someone like her probably didn't pay for that seat. But here's where this story goes from infuriating to absolutely explosive. Imagine you're a celebrity. Your face has been on magazine covers, your songs play on the radio, your tickets sell out arenas. But when you show up at an airport gate, you're treated like you stole your boarding pass. And when you try to explain who you are, they accuse you of being arrogant. For 28 minutes, Jazz stood at that gate while the agent questioned her, delayed her boarding, and suggested she might be more comfortable in economy. Other first-class passengers walked past without a single question, but Jazz? She needed to prove she belonged. Most celebrities would complain privately to the airline, maybe accept some free miles and move on. But Jazz did something different, something that changed everything. She went live on Instagram, right there at the gate, with 47,000 people watching in real time. And what she captured wasn't just her own experience. It was a pattern that had been hiding in plain sight for years. Because within hours of her video going viral, thousands of other Black passengers started sharing their stories with the hashtag #JazzExposedThem. Flight attendants came forward with internal documents, former employees leaked discrimination complaints that had been buried, and the airline's carefully crafted public image crumbled in 72 hours. So what really happened at that gate? What did Jazz's live video capture that couldn't be denied? And how did one artist's refusal to stay silent spark the biggest reckoning in airline history? Buckle up! July 20th, 2024. Los Angeles International Airport, Terminal 4, 2:17 p.m. Jasmine Carter was heading to New York for a performance on The Tonight Show. She'd booked a first-class seat on the 4:30 p.m. flight, something she did regularly when traveling for work. After years of cramped tour buses and red-eye flights in economy, first class was one of the perks she'd earned. She arrived at LAX at 1:45 p.m., breezed through security with TSA pre-check, and stopped at a cafe for a smoothie. By 2:15 p.m., she was at Gate 47, scrolling through her phone while waiting for boarding to begin. At 2:30 p.m., first-class boarding was announced. Jazz gathered her designer carry-on bag and Louis Vuitton purse, items she'd bought with money she'd earned from her music, and joined the small line of about 8 passengers. The gate agent, a woman in her late 40s named Sharon Mitchell, was scanning boarding passes with mechanical efficiency. Beep, welcome aboard. Beep, enjoy your flight. Beep, have a great trip. Then Jazz stepped up. She held out her phone with her mobile boarding pass clearly displayed, Seat 3A, First Class. Sharon scanned it. The system beeped green, valid ticket. But instead of welcoming Jazz aboard like she'd done for everyone else, Sharon's eyes narrowed. "Is this your ticket?" Jazz was caught off guard. "Excuse me?" "I asked if this is your ticket. Did you purchase this yourself?" A chill ran down Jazz's spine. She'd heard stories, she'd had friends warn her, but experiencing it firsthand hit different. "Yes, I purchased it. It's my ticket." Sharon stared at the screen, then at Jazz, then back at the screen. "First class is quite expensive. Are you sure you didn't mean to book economy?" The condescension was unmistakable. Jazz felt her face flush with anger, but she kept her voice measured. "I'm sure. That's my seat. Can I board now?" "I need to verify this." "Verify what? Your system already confirmed it's valid." Sharon ignored her and picked up the phone, calling someone. She spoke in hushed tones while other passengers started backing up behind Jazz. Some looked annoyed at the delay. Others were already pulling out their phones. Jazz made a split-second decision. She opened Instagram, switched to live video, and hit record. "Hey everyone, Jazz here," she said, her voice calm but firm. "I'm at LAX trying to board my flight, and I'm being detained because apparently the gate agent doesn't believe I could afford a first-class ticket. Let's document this together." Within seconds, viewers started flooding in. 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. The gate agent, Sharon, looked up, startled. "Ma'am, you can't record here." "Actually, I can. This is a public space, and I'm documenting discrimination." A supervisor arrived, a man named Craig Donovan. He saw the phone, saw the live viewer count climbing, and his expression shifted from authoritative to nervous. "What seems to be the problem?" he asked, trying to sound professional. "Your agent is questioning whether I actually purchased my first-class ticket, despite your system confirming it's valid. She suggests that I might be more comfortable in economy." Jazz angled her phone so her viewers could see both Sharon and Craig clearly. Craig glanced at Sharon, whose face had gone pale. "Ma'am, I'm sure this is just a misunderstanding." "Is it? Because I've been standing here for 6 minutes while she verifies a ticket that's already been verified. Meanwhile, everyone else walked right through." The live chat was exploding. Viewers were tagging the airline's official account. Celebrities were jumping into the stream. News outlets were already screen recording the footage. Craig looked at the computer screen. "Your ticket is valid, Ms." The words hung in the air like a bomb, and 47,000 people heard them live. Jazz's jaw dropped. The passengers behind her gasped. Craig's face went from nervous to horrified. And Sharon realized, too late, what she just said on camera to one of the most followed artists in America. Jazz turned to face her phone, speaking directly to her viewers. "Y'all heard that, right? I point out discrimination and I'm playing the race card. This is what we deal with. This is why I'm recording." The comment section was a wildfire. "Get her, Jazz. Sharon is done. We got the receipts. I'm never flying this airline again." Craig tried damage control. "Miss Carter, I apologize. That was completely inappropriate. Please let me personally escort you to your seat." But Jazz wasn't done. How many other black passengers has she done this to? How many people who aren't famous, who don't have 8 million followers, who just had to accept this treatment because they had no power to fight back? She turned to address the growing crowd of passengers. "Can I ask a question? How many of you boarding first class today were asked if you actually paid for your ticket? Anyone? No? Just me?" Silence. Some passengers shook their heads. One white businessman spoke up. "I fly first class every week. Never been asked once." Jazz looked back at the camera. "That's what I thought." Craig was now practically begging. "Miss Carter, please, let's discuss this privately." "No, we're discussing it right here, right now, on the record, because this needs to be seen." By now, airport security had arrived, not to remove Jazz, but to manage the crowd that was forming. Other passengers were recording on their own phones. The gate area had become a scene. And then something remarkable started happening in the live chat. Other black passengers began sharing their own stories. "This happened to me in Atlanta last month. They did this to my mom in Chicago. I got removed from first class in Houston for suspicious behavior, aka existing." Jazz started reading the comments aloud. Story after story, pattern after pattern. What had started as her individual experience was becoming a collective testimony. Within 2 hours of her video starting, it had been viewed 2.3 million times. By that evening, it was at 12 million. News outlets were covering it. The airline's social media was being flooded with thousands of similar stories. And then the floodgates really opened. Current and former airline employees started coming forward anonymously. A flight attendant posted internal training documents that included behavioral indicators that were thinly veiled racial profiling. A former gate agent shared emails showing that complaints about discrimination had been dismissed or buried. One whistleblower, a former supervisor named Michael Torres, came forward publicly with documentation showing that black passengers were denied boarding or upgrades at rates significantly higher than white passengers, even with identical credentials. The airline released a statement by 8 p.m. "We are investigating this incident and take all discrimination complaints seriously." But Jazz wasn't accepting corporate speak. She posted a response video. "Taking it seriously, your employees are trained to profile. Your complaints go nowhere, and you only care now because I have a platform. This isn't about me. This is about every person who doesn't have millions of followers who's been treated this way." She demanded public apology, termination of employees involved, third-party audit of all discrimination complaints from the past 5 years, mandatory anti-bias training with external oversight, and compensation to passengers who could prove they'd experienced similar treatment. The airline had 72 hours to respond. The clock was ticking, and the internet was watching. Here's how this story ended, and why it matters so much. The airline initially tried to offer Jazz a private settlement. Free flights for life, first-class upgrades, a personal apology from the CEO. She turned it all down and made their offer public, saying, "This isn't about me getting perks. This is about systemic change." The pressure became unbearable. Within a week, the airline announced sweeping reforms. Sharon Mitchell and Craig Donovan were terminated. They committed to a complete third-party audit of discrimination complaints from the past decade. They implemented new training programs developed with civil rights organizations. And they created a passenger advocacy board to review complaints independently. But the real victory was what happened next. Other airlines, terrified of becoming the next viral scandal, proactively began reviewing their own policies. The FAA launched an investigation into discrimination practices across the industry, and Jazz's hashtag #JazzExposeThem became a movement, with over 50,000 passengers sharing their stories. Jazz used her platform to amplify voices that normally get silenced. She turned her pain into power, and she proved that sometimes the boldest thing you can do is refuse to be quiet. If this story inspired you, subscribe and hit that bell. I bring you these stories every week because change happens when we refuse to look away. Drop a comment. Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination while traveling? Your story matters. Share this video everywhere because Jazz showed us that when you have a platform, you have a responsibility. And when you see injustice, you document it, you speak up, and you demand better. Sharon thought she was dealing with just another passenger. Instead, she picked a fight with someone who had 8 million people watching. And that made